because things have to break before they are often better, right? You're not just going to get it right first time round. I mean, I've experienced that as a business owner in all aspects of life.
Hi, my name's Olivia Jackson. I'm a Senior Associate at Aptum Legal, and I'm here for episode 2 of Coffee with Liv. I'm here with Marita Evans, who is the co-founder and Chief Marketing Officer at Aptum. Marita, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Liv. I'm really happy to be here today.
Today we're going to be talking about perfectionism, burnout, what it's like to work at Aptum, and grad recruitment. I was wondering if we could just start with you giving us an overview of your career.
Oh, well, where do we start? I basically went to law school straight out of high school. I'm from Brisbane. So my recollection was I had, my only concept of law was a show at the time called LA Law. So I knew that I wanted to wear a suit with shoulder pads and have a briefcase, and that's about all I knew.
With me, for me it was Legally Blonde, yes. So I know this inspiration.
So I wasn't from a family of lawyers, but it sort of appealed to me having a life like that, and it was the late 80s, and it was a time where it was second wave feminism, women could do anything. So yeah, I worked really hard, got into law school, and quickly realised that law was nothing like LA Law. But nevertheless, I did enjoy my degree. It was a really interesting degree, met some great people. It stimulated me intellectually, and then I started down the path of clerkships in big law firms pretty much from the beginning of my second year at uni. But having said that, I sort of ended up getting to the end of my degree and felt that big law wasn't really for me. I wasn't really sure which way I wanted to go. So I ended up actually going on a Commonwealth Government graduate program and doing a year with the Department of Defence, and they recruited legal graduates for their sort of major capital equipment acquisitions. So strangely enough, the girl from Brisbane who wanted to be in LA Law ends up in Canberra working for, sort of very senior members of the Army, the Air Force and the Navy, because you do rotations in all three, and you're a civilian in rooms with a lot of brass. So that was it was a very interesting experience to have exposure to that at such a young age, and something that I knew nothing about. I quickly realised that the public sector wasn't for me. I'd come from a family of business owners, and I think bureaucracy, it became evident to me that it wasn't probably the place I wanted to be. So I did feel that I wanted some more commercial experience, which took me back to law in the traditional sense, and I ended up getting a job in Sydney after that with Mallisons, and I did the rest of my training with Mallisons, and then moved across to Minters. So really primarily in the litigation space, construction litigation, and then commercial litigation and some admin law. Yeah, exposed to such a great variety of work, and that's what I loved about litigation. And then in my 20s, as you do, I travelled a bit, moved to London, and even had a stint doing non-legal stuff in law firms. So that's where I went into PR and marketing. Yeah. Just wanted a bit of a break from practicing. But then ended up, when I came back to Australia, I did a bit more of that work, but I had my first child, and then my second child, and I ended up doing some contract work during that time. But when my second boy was about 3, I decided I would go to the bar just to keep things interesting.
Yeah, just that little thing, go to the bar when
So,
you have a
yeah.
3-year-old.
So, I'm sort of giving you the cliff notes of a very peppered career here.
Yeah.
But, I think it was just that idea of, oh, look, if I work for myself, I might get more flexibility, because I felt that I couldn't get that if I went back into a big law firm.
Yeah.
It was my perception.
Yeah.
I must say my experience with the law firms I worked for was really positive in terms of the people and the opportunities I was given, but I felt that the workability of it with 2 kids who I wanted to be around, I wanted to be flexible, and I thought the bar may be the answer to that.
We'll
and
come
you probably
back.
know what
Okay, we'll
that's
come
gonna-
back to the answer, whether it was the answer. I find that law can demand as much as you're willing to give it, especially in private practice. So I feel like it would be a hard, maybe a conflict when you want to give it your all and you also want to give parenting your all, and maybe they would come into opposition sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Female lawyers, I can speak, I think, from my experience, a lot of us tend to be perfectionists. So we want everything to be just right. So when we're working, we want to get everything just right. And then I found that I was applying that to my parenting as well. I wanted to do everything well. So probably had a bit of that good girl syndrome, perfectionism, that can be difficult, I think, when you're trying to juggle different challenges in life.
Do you think, have you found a balance with the perfectionism now that you feel, perhaps if you were to speak to your younger self and you were to give a message around that and how to properly balance it and find something that, you know, you're still achieving excellent outputs, but it doesn't drive you crazy as perfectionism can. Where have you landed with that?
I've absolutely loosened up on those things. I think my boys taught me a lot about loosening up. And then my partner also has an ability to be able to lean in and lean out quite readily, and I've learned a lot from him. And I think I do have that now. I do have that ability to go, no, this is good enough. I'm doing a great job and it's good enough. And someone once told me about parenting as well. You need to be a good enough parent, not a perfect parent. And I think you need to be a good enough lawyer or whatever your profession is. You don't need to be the perfect, because striving for perfection is elusive.
Yes.
You will never be perfect. And things get in the way of that and it can throw you off kilter. And I see it in younger lawyers that come in through Aptum, and I do want to tell them that you don't have to be perfect.
I mean, good enough there's a reality that implies. You know, work out what the right standard is and achieve that, rather than, I feel perfectionism is this elusive, unattainable goal.
I was actually reflecting on it the other day, how much I have moved into that space of just being able to go from one task to another. I mean, it comes from years of experience, but I would like to be able to pass that on to people so they can absorb that perhaps.
So Marita, you mentioned this term good enough. Can you just explain a bit about what good enough looks like in practice?
So if you're on a task and you know you've really put your all into it and it's good enough, you've got to keep things moving, whatever you're doing in life. To sit on them is like, I think that's the poison chalice. If you're not passing it, shipping it, getting it, moving it on, that's when things start to become problematic. for you because you're up at 3 a.m. thinking about it because you haven't moved it on. So, for example, as a lawyer, if you're given a task, you put your best effort into it, and then you get to a point where you go, this is good enough. I ship it to where it has to go. I move it on, and then I'll get feedback and I will learn from that. But it doesn't have to be the most perfect product that anyone has ever seen to get to that point. And I think perfectionism is the enemy of motion. Motion is what progresses everything in life. It makes things better because things have to break before they are often better, right? You're not just going to get it right first time round. I mean, I've experienced that as a business owner in all aspects of life. So I think motion, keep it moving, do your best, but it doesn't have to be the best.
So progress, and something that you mentioned that I think is really important is getting the feedback. You're going to get the feedback, not being afraid of the feedback as well, in my experience, rather than trying to create the perfect product so that the feedback is only good. When you get constructive feedback, so to speak, it's so useful for your career and your development and your growth. Once I realised that, things shifted for me as well a bit, because I was looking forward to, I gave it my best shot, and now I'm looking forward to the feedback, even if there are things that I can improve on, because it's so invaluable to have someone else's perspective on your work.
And that's the challenge, isn't it? That's the challenge for a perfectionist.
Yes.
Because they want to get it right without any sort of feedback which they perceive as a criticism.
Exactly.
So it's that ability not to personalise, but to see, cliche, feedback as a gift.
Yeah.
It's like, it really is.
Yeah.
And if you're in a safe environment, in a workplace where you value your mentors and you see them as people that can give you something, then the time they're giving you to look at your work, you see it as their gift to you for you to be a better lawyer, for you to be better at what you do.
In your opinion, what makes a lawyer thrive in the workplace?
I think from my experience, what makes a lawyer thrive is that they feel that they're in an environment, I think I hinted at this before, where they feel psychologically safe to be able to make mistakes and get feedback that helps them grow. That they're pushed a bit in terms of stretching themselves, because I see it with even the young grads coming through. They are so smart. They are so smart, and you need to be able to let them show you that. So I think being given exposure from a very early stage in your career is a great gift, and it gives you confidence.
Yeah.
And we've always been very strong supporters of our grads having exposure to whole of life matters, not just being quarantined into a very discrete part of a large matter. I think having balance makes a lawyer thrive. I don't think you can be thinking about law 24/7. I think you've got to have variety in your life. I find a lot of lawyers have these incredibly creative sides.
Yeah.
Like, do you find that
too?
Like, so many are musicians or writers or
I
dancers,
wonder what that is.
or there's something about law that I think attracts really creative types. So I think you still have to have that outlet in your life as well. Law in itself is creative, but doing something non-legal in your off time, I think, is really important. I find people perceive lawyers as being fairly sort of narrow-minded, look like just having that sole focus on their careers, but that hasn't been my experience. Most of the lawyers I know are incredibly interesting people.
Wondering if you could speak a little bit about what you've observed are the traps of being a perfectionist in law.
Well, the ultimate trap, I think, is it leads to burnout, and it makes you perhaps make some decisions that otherwise wouldn't necessarily be in your best interest. So what I see a pattern with lawyers is they might, really work so hard during those first few years and lean into perhaps the demands that are being put upon them in such a way that it has an adverse effect on their physical and mental health, and you see them drop out entirely. So instead of perhaps seeing the workplace as the problem, they see law as the problem. And then you and I have often said, you go from, being an associate to perhaps saying, I want to be a florist.
Yeah.
Because because it's like these extremes.
Got to get out. Yeah.
I've just got to get out of here, and I've got to just do something completely different. And I've seen that a lot in my career, and I understand it because I've been there, and I think it's actually a mistake, and it was part of the reason for setting up Aptum, was seeing that these great people, these potentially great lawyers, were dropping out for perhaps the wrong reason. And I think you're a case in point there, Liv.
Yeah. I do. I think that something we've spoken about a little bit is this idea of trying to find a workplace that works for you, that is a good fit for you.
Correct.
And I think you're exactly right. People see law in general as, every workplace is going to be the same. And so if I'm not enjoying this, I may as well leave altogether. And I think it's really sad because people they're great people and they decide, I don't want anything to do with it. I took myself 6 months off, and when I took that time off, I thought, okay, let me think about what else I could do. I'm maybe going to leave law altogether, not sure.
Yep.
And at the end of that 6 months, I thought, I really like litigation. Sort of a strange thing to admit. It felt strange to admit to myself, but I really enjoy law. I really enjoy litigation. And I really want to investigate whether it's my environment, whether I can find an environment that really works for me, which I feel like I've found, which is great at Aptum. But I feel like people don't think of it that way very often about what workplace is best for me.
And to be fair, I think when you're in that point of stress in your life, it actually is hard to think logically. Yeah. I think your decisions become quite impetuous. And law isn't for everybody, but all I'm sort of wondering is how many have perhaps left for the wrong reasons.
I think coming back to that being sort of the trap of perfectionism, I think that when you start out in your career in law, you're not sure what is important and unimportant. It takes a long time to get your bearings in terms of just there's so many different processes, and so you're treating everything with equal importance. And that can be exhausting, and that's why it is really hard coming into the profession, and those first few years can be really tiring. But the more my experience has been, the more you gather the data on what's worth being stressed, for lack of a better word, what's worth being stressed about and what's not worth being stressed about, you start to find an equilibrium, you start to find a way of working that is sustainable. And I think what makes me sad is people not yet finding that and deciding to go off into a different path. And you're right, it's not for everyone, and it is a really challenging job, but so many of us got into law in the first place because it was challenging.
Correct.
We enjoy
You're
that
attracted
challenge.
to it, right?
Wondering if you could talk a little bit about the vision you had for Aptum when you first founded it, and how that has evolved and shifted over the years.
Really, the vision for Aptum probably came from personal a personal need, in the sense that I talked before about I feel I have an entrepreneurial spirit in me, so always sort of wanted to have my own thing. But I also, we, as one of the co-founders, we wanted to create that safe landing for lawyers, for really good lawyers to come. And first and foremost, it was a great place to work. We wanted to create a culture that gave an alternative to big law, but with the big law experience on your CV, because the people that we have on board are people that could easily be working in large law firms, but they have chosen us because we are different. So the quality of the work was always going to be important to what we do, but also how we treat our people. So we try and always keep, we still have to be able to keep the lights on. So there's certain commercial realities about running a law firm. So probably at the beginning we were a little bit pie in the sky about that and didn't have the discipline. We thought we could operate without billable targets and perhaps value-based pricing. We had fairly lofty goals, but it became apparent that we did have to become more disciplined, and there were realities about being able to run a profitable business. But we have really tried to cap budgets for lawyers at levels under the market. You will rarely see anyone in our firm on a weekend. I mean, Liv, you can speak to that more than I can.
I don't think I've ever been there on the weekend.
So it's just not a cultural thing to be there late at night, to be there on weekends. We very much have a set of values that we really try and live by, and one of them is that we are disciplined, and we truly believe that you can get your work done within very reasonable office hours if you are disciplined. And we really try and teach that to our young people right from the get-go. So it's not a badge of honour to be at your desk at 11 p.m. at night. It's the opposite. It's like, what's happening with your day? There's a problem here. We see that as a problem. It's not sustainable. It's not good for our people, and it's not good for our clients.
No one's doing their best work at 11 p.m.
No one's doing their best work at 11 p.m. And we also are very conscious that our clients are getting value. So we need to make sure that our lawyers are delivering value, but that our lawyers are also have a sustainable life. So that was the vision, but it's been tweaked along the way just because of the discipline around the commercial realities. But I think we still can hold our head up high and say that we're different, we operate differently. There isn't that unspoken pressure to be on when you're meant to be with family or doing other things in your life. I'd like to think that we're true to that. But I don't shy away from that. It's a hard job. But I think we attract people who want that.
And I think that the way I interpret the discipline value is you need to find the way of working that is best for you and find a way to stick to it, and people will respect that, which is what I really appreciate. If you were to go, you know what, between 10 and 12, I need no one to ask me a question, I'm in deep work, people will understand the value of that, not feeling that, wait, no, I want to talk to you at that time. That's really respected, which I think is great. So you're in charge of the grad recruitment at Aptum. Can you talk us through that process and what that looks like for grads?
Yes, we've been formally sort of in the recruitment graduate space now we're coming up to our 4th year. We've noticed that the number of applicants has increased markedly over the years. So the triage process is really important. So in terms of standing out, what we look for is people really showing us that Aptum is a choice for them, that we're not just one of many law firms they're applying to. Of course they are, and we would expect that. But what we would look for first and foremost is a cover letter or a video of why Aptum and what perhaps you can bring to us. Those people really stand out. Look, solid grades are important, but we're mindful that they don't show everything about the individual, but it is part of the triage process. And then we basically bring it down to a manageable number, which go into an assessment centre, and that's a group type interview, which is a fairly relaxed, informal process where a group of graduates are invited, and we run about 3 or 4 of those, and they go for about an hour and a half, and we do some scenarios. Then we narrow it down again. So in that group scenario, we're looking for individuals that can collaborate. They're not too inclined to take over the group, that can perhaps include people that aren't speaking up, that answer the questions, and don't just speak to be heard, say something meaningful. They're the sorts of things that get you over the line in a group interview. Also, not being late. We do have a few that turn up late, and that's not a great look. So then what happens is you're invited to, if you make it through that stage, you're invited to an interview with usually a practice lead and an associate or senior associate. And that involves scenarios usually and a few personal questions. So that process goes over about 2 months, and this year we're looking at opening applications in August.
So you spoke a bit about how grads can stand out in the recruitment process, which is opening up in August. I was wondering if you could talk about your experience of recruitment for different levels of lawyers and how people could stand out if they're really interested in Aptum.
What has intrigued me, and we have spoken about this in the past, is the amount of lawyers who aren't in that graduate space, so say associates and senior associates, who don't come to us directly. So I have found that really fascinating, that they feel the need to go through recruiters all the time. And it's actually not necessarily in their interest to do that. Like, meet with us directly, talk to us directly. It shows that you have initiative, and it also may open up a space for you that might otherwise not exist. If a firm has to pay a recruitment fee on top of a salary, it's actually a big business proposition. So you kind of have to, it's another hurdle, so to speak, if we're not actively recruiting. But we've had situations where we have been approached and we've kind of been able to make a space for a person because we know that, okay, no, they're really keen and interested in Aptum and working for Aptum. We don't quite have an opening, we weren't going to do it, but I think we will because we don't have the recruitment fee. But they've come to us directly, they've shown us that they're enthusiastic.
It strikes me as beneficial for the candidate as well, because they can talk to you or whoever and get a sense for what
if we're going to suit,
exactly,
right? And you're not going through a second or a third person, I should say. So I would say that's a great way to move or pivot.
Marita, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. It was a great conversation we've had.
My pleasure, Liv. Thank you.